Hi everyone, I'm excited to be here today. I'm going to start sharing my screen here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. We are going to be talking about savings. I have a relatively short presentation, so it's not going to be too long, but I'm going to hit on the most important parts. So if you have any questions, please ask. I'm here to help you, and it doesn't even have to be about savings. You can always private message me or just send it into the chat. All right, so the importance of savings. I'm gonna get right into it. We all know that it's important to save, right? But how do you even know how much money you have to save? So before we go into savings, I wanna first talk about importance of budgeting. Because this is going to be really crucial, especially when you're talking about savings. So I have a question for all of you. How much does a person need to make an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment here in San Jose? Just take a wild guess. You can put it in the chat. You can unmute yourself. So let's get a few guesses. How much per hour? Let's see, we have 50, 20, 25, 35, 40, 30, really good guesses. And it's Jaden, you are almost completely right. So it costs about $52. Well, you need to make $52 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. This is an apartment. This is not a house or a home. This is just an apartment. And so one of the main things that I want to mention is that we do live in one of the most expensive valleys ever. So it's important to take that into consideration because you have, you know, the cost of living, the cost of eating and all of that up here. And then you have your wages, which, you know, things are not exactly adding up the way that they should. And so we do need to take that into consideration and be sensitive about that. But it is, you know, really expensive. So I want to talk about budgeting, and I'm going to introduce you to the zero-based budget. This is one of the easiest budgets that I would recommend for anyone because you're basically, you're collecting and, you know, or writing down how much money you have coming in. That's from, you know, employment, that's from any side jobs that you may have, any other assistance that you receive. And then you have your list of expenses, right? All of your bills, everything that you have to pay. And then you're going to basically input all of that information. I want to say budgeting is not as tedious as it sounds anymore because you don't have to write everything down and do the math by yourself because there are a lot of worksheets out there where you can just input all that information for you and you just get all of the good information that you need. So I would highly encourage you to just do a Google search for budgeting forms and find the one that is going to work best for your situation. But I would absolutely recommend that you, if you do not have a budget, you start building one because this budget is going to tell you how much money you have coming in and how much you have going out, and if you have anything left over. And so if you do have something left over, this is where we want to talk about, you know, what do you do with it? Because every penny in a zero-based budget has a job. So whether that's going towards a bill, whether that's going towards paying down some type of debt, or whether that's going into a savings account. But a budget will let you know what's going to be realistic for you. So first, I want to talk about an emergency savings. Your budget, no matter what you do, always include savings, always include savings. And what I do personally is I have 2 buckets for savings. I have my short-term savings, which is my regular checking or my regular savings account. And then I have emergency savings, right? Because they're different. You know, you have your short-term goals, so like, oh, I want to save up to buy something specific, right? And so that's what my regular savings account is for. And then I have a bucket for emergencies, and that's just for whatever may happen. So, you know, what are some emergencies that you can think of? What I think of car trouble. I think of a health crisis like we're currently experiencing right now. You have to travel unexpectedly, maybe to go see family, or you lose your job. The thing about emergencies is that they're unpredictable. You don't know when they're going to happen. And so you want to make sure you are being prepared. And the only way you can do that is to prepare ahead of time and create that emergency savings, right? So I would highly, highly encourage you, if you don't have one, get one, create one. I think a lot of people are intimidated with savings because they're like, oh, I don't have a lot of money. How am I going to save? But keep in mind that every dollar adds up. So one thing that I want you all to reflect on is how and where do you save? If you guys can answer that, so how do you save? Do you save in a piggy bank? Do you have your own savings account? Do you put money under your mattress? You know, how do you save? And where do you save? Are you at a bank or a credit union? Do you save just at home? You have a jar? Where are you right now? How many of you have a bank account? Let's see. Piggy bank. Nothing wrong with the piggy bank. I have my little coin jar too. Savings account and tip jar, savings and checking savings account. Okay, with high interest rate, great. All right, so this is something that you definitely want to think about because, you know, if you are saving at home and you have your piggy bank, one thing to understand is that, you know, it's not insured. You know, if something were to happen, you know, we hope that doesn't, but if it does, you know, your money is going to be gone, right? And so you would lose all of your savings. Whereas if you're using a bank or a credit union, as long as they're FDIC or NCUA, you know, approved, if they have that sticker on there, you know that your is going to be insured in case something happens. And so that is something to think about. I know a lot of people are hesitant to join financial institutions just because of, you know, bad experiences or whatever the case, but there are benefits to that. And one is that your money is protected. All right. So again, the benefits of a savings account, you know, it's the safer alternative to saving money because you know where it's going to go. It's protected in case, you know, something does happen to the bank. It is protected under one of the insurance agencies that I mentioned. And also you can utilize mobile banking. So it's not like your money is like out of sight, out of mind. You can pull it up on your phone. You can see how much money you have in there. If you have a checking account, you can easily transfer money. You can easily set up an automatic deposit to where you don't even have to think about it. You set it up once, and every month, or you know, however frequently you want it, you have money being directed into your savings. And it helps you stay on track, right? Because you can visually see what's going on in that account. You can see any transactions that you've made. If something does happen and, you know, maybe there's some type of fraud involved, you can view it and you can see it, you can report it. So that way, again, you're protecting yourself. And also, there's a lot of different types of savings accounts. You know, in the comments, there was like, I have a savings account with high interest, right? So we're going to also talk about that. So most people have a traditional savings account, right? This is when you go to a bank and you get your checking, you get your savings. And depending on the financial institution, depending on where you bank, the interest is not that great. If you go to like a commercial bank, Wells Fargo, Chase, you know, for their interest is traditionally like 0.01. And so in order to see anything extra come out of that, you have to have thousands of dollars already in the bank to get a few pennies of interest. And so, you know, if you do have, you know, a healthy amount of savings and you can't foresee anything immediately happening, you can take some of that savings and you can potentially put it somewhere else. And so we're going to talk about some of those options. Because one of the things about savings is that you want your money to be working for you, and that's what it's about too as well, right? You know, you don't just want it to be sitting there, you know, because it can do some work. And so we want to talk about high yield savings accounts. So what exactly, what are these, right? So it's a bank account that earns you a higher interest, or an APY. Pre-pandemic, these rates were actually over 1%. Ours was actually 1.25% for a regular high yield savings account. It's not that anymore, but it was. So hopefully, once everything's begin to go back to normal and markets get better, hopefully these interest rates will go up. So I will say right now, they're not that great, but it's still something, right? But either way, you're not touching the money, right? So you might as well get a few more dollars. So this is a less risky investment than investing into the stock market or doing something drastic like that. You are guaranteed your money. So that's the most important thing. But one of the cons of this type of account is that a lot of online banks are offering different options for accounts, and you may not know exactly if they're insured or what's going on with them. You want to make sure that how do you get access to your money? How are you supposed to be making these transactions and these transfers? So there are some things that you do need to be careful of, because there are scams out there, and you need to make sure that you're utilizing trustworthy sources, right? Careful with those type of things, especially online. Traditionally, credit unions have better programs, they have better interest rates. So, and I work at a credit union, so I'm not just being biased, but they really, really do have better rates. And that's part of being a part of a credit union. You are a part member. They are not for profit. So anything that they do make is filtered back into the community in higher interest rates, right? So I would definitely look at the credit unions if you haven't already for better saving options. You always want to compare. You always want to shop around, because what may be high yield over here is not quite high yield, because there's another institution that has an even better product, right? And so if you are really looking for the best, you kind of have to do a little bit more digging instead of just going to the first one that you see. And there's also bonds and certificate of deposits. The thing that you want to be careful about these is, they will tie up your money for a period of time. And so you don't just want to tie up all of your money for 6 months or 1 year or 3 years, and then something happens and you don't have no money because you put it all into this account where it's you can't touch it unless you're going to face some type of penalty. So never, ever, ever put all of your money away like that. Always keep some just in case. All right, so no matter what, the things that you want to consider are, what minimum balances do I need? How long is my money going to be tied up? What are the fees, if any? What if an emergency does happen? How much is the penalty that I will have to pay? If you're utilizing online high yield savings accounts, what is that transfer process going to be like? Is it free to transfer those money? How long will it take? You have access to your money. And then they have some type of interest attached to it, right? So you want to know, when is that compounded? Do you get it daily, monthly, quarterly, yearly? What does it look like? Just so you have an idea. And that also lets you compare it to other products. So just make sure that you're gathering all of that information. So I'm gonna switch over because I want to actually show you an example. Can you see my screen, my new screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Excite, and we can also look up another institution of your choice, but I want you guys really to get into the habit of researching and comparing. So here we have CDs. This is our CDs, and they have different terms. So we have 6 month, 12 month, 24, 36, 48, 60. So what does that mean? That means whichever one you choose, that's how long your money is going to be tied up. So that's something to consider. And then you have the APY. So of course, the one with the shortest term has the less. less interest or APY. And then the one that is 5 years has the greatest. That's because your money is going to be tied up for a long time, right? So these are the things that you want to look at. And also the minimum deposit is $500 to open this. So that's the minimum that you need. And one of the greatest things about having things kind of laid out like this is that you can go ahead and do the math yourself, right? You can find out how much money you're going to get for however much you're depositing in there by, timesing it by the 0.35 and however long your term is. So you can do that math ahead of time so you can decide whether or not it's actually going to be worth it, right? So that's something I also would consider. So let's do some research. What is a institution that you want to compare to? It can be any financial institution.
What about Chase?
Chase? Chase certificate of deposit. Let's see what they have. All right, let's see, what do they have here? All right, so can you see my screen still? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
So here are their CD terms. So they have anywhere from 1 month to, like a long time. They have 10 years. So 1 month to 10 years. But if you look here, if you have anywhere from 0 to 10,000, you're only going to make 0.02. Is that, I mean, you get to decide what's worth it to you. But when I look at that, that's nothing to, especially what if you're only putting in $500, right? 0.02% on that. It's not going to give you really anything. So this is where you want to do the math, and figure out who is going to be the best provider for the CD, right? And you can do this with any other institution. You can compare Site, Chase, Wells Fargo, Mirror West. Like I said, credit unions have some of the best rates. So I would go with them first. But it's just about doing that research and getting into the habit of it. Because if all you know is Chase and you're like, oh, I want a CD, you're missing out, right? Because there's more to be made out there. So I would really, really just encourage you to do some digging. Even bonds, you still want to make sure that the terms are going to be favorable. Depending on where you buy the bond, you should be able to get all of that information up front. And again, if you can do the calculations and you're like, okay, this investment is going to be worth it, go for it. But again, if it's not going to be favorable, or if you're like, oh, that's not really what I want, then, don't do it. But bonds, certificate of deposits, these are the safer investment options. But what comes with that is the return is not as great as it would be if you were to risk your money in the stock market, because stock market, high risk, high reward, right? So you can gain money really fast, but you can also lose it even faster. So it really depends on what you want to do. But I support of these safer investment options. So bonds, CDs, high yield saving accounts. All right, so saving. Back to this, the biggest thing about savings is you should not compare your situation with someone else's, because when you do that, you're like, oh, I'm just not doing enough. I'm not going to be able to get this or that. We are all at different points in our life, in our journey. We all have different responsibilities. We have different things. There's people who are in their 20s and they have to take care of themselves. And then there's other people in their 20s that help them do things, right? So you have to look at your own situation and make those decisions. And don't feel bad if all you can do for the week is $10 in your savings, because even $10 adds up, right? So it's just about being consistent. If you consistently put that $10 away every week, within a couple of months, you're going to have, a couple of $100 that you wouldn't have had otherwise if you didn't put it away, right? So no matter how much it is, put it away. Do not compare yourself to others because they may be at a different point in their life. Our presentation was very short because I wanted to make sure that we had time for questions. And if there are any other savings questions, of course, feel free, or any other questions. Usually I have my colleague with me. She's not here with me today. But if you do have any questions, you can always reach out to myself or Daisy Castro. We are here to help you. We're not disconnected, right? We understand what it's like to be a student. We understand what it's like to be independent and having to make those difficult financial decisions. So please reach out to us if you do need any assistance with that.
We have one question from the audience. She says she'd like to open an account for 7-year-old son with credit union. What do you recommend?
So that's a really good question. And I can actually show you since we do have some time here. Again, it's going to take time because I will always say research, research, research. But I know that we have a youth savings account. Bank of America has a youth savings account. There's a lot of different options out there. So you definitely want to dig into that. I'm going to go to ours and I'm going to kind of explain it. I can really only tell you for sure ours because this is where I work. So I have to know all of the products, but I do know that, every bank does have something for children. But again, it's going to go back to comparing, right? Comparing what is going to be the best. So let me reshare my screen. Okay, so this is our youth savings. So our youth savings is called the Step Up. And so what this savings does is, here are the perks. One, we provide the $50 initial deposit for the account. And then we provide $5 in matching per year. And because you guys are associated with SparkPoint in community college, if you live in our field of membership, which is the 6 counties within the Bay Area, going down to Santa Cruz and Monterey, you are automatically eligible for this. This one in particular is a partner program, but again, SparkPoint is a partner of ours. It's a very special account because we invest so much into it, and that's why it's only really for our partners. We provide the $50 and then $25 a year in matching. And then on the child's 15th, and 18th birthday, they get an extra $25 match. And then the account pays 5% interest on balances up to $2,500. So this is a lot that we're investing into this account, but that is because we are so serious about savings. We're so serious about youth savings, saving as early as you possibly can. Our hope is that they will have something saved for college, or they will have something saved to, get their car, whatever their goals are once they turn 18, we don't want them to have nothing. And so that is why we invest so much. So this is ours. I can tell you that there's not going to be another account like this. We've done our research and it doesn't exist. That's why we created it. But there are other accounts out there. So especially for young people, saving as early as possible is always the best idea. So that's for, but I would still encourage you to look at other institutions as well. Is there any questions about that, or?
Yeah, I love that. I wanted to know more about the $25 match. Is that $25 per deposit?
So it's $25 a year. We wanted to have a very low threshold. So if a family within the calendar year, so maybe they're doing a few dollars a month and they match up and they get enough to equal that 25, we will match that. But it's a max of 25. So even if you put $50 a year in the account, we'll still just do that 25. And but one thing about that account is that it is strictly for savings. And that's another reason why we have such a low threshold, is because we don't want you to be like, oh, I put all my money in this account and I need it now, because if you make withdrawals, you actually forfeit all the money. So it's a strictly savings.
Real quick, I wanted to ask, did I see that right? Did that say 5% APY?
Yes, you've seen
That's
that.
so high. Okay, I have to open an account for my little brother now. Like that's awesome. Maybe for one for me too. Jeez.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, absolutely. And see, that's the thing. Well, you have to be 0 to 17. So you can be just born, as long as you have your social,
Okay.
you can open the account. It is a custodial account, so you do have to be 18 if you're going to open it for your brother.
Okay, all good. Thank you.
You're welcome. We brag about it all the time, but unfortunately, a lot of people are not taking advantage of it yet. And we're working really hard to change that. So if you know someone, we really are trying to get the information into Eastside San Jose. So if you know anyone in Eastside San Jose, goes to Eastside schools, we know that Eastside is one of our hardest hit areas in San Jose and Santa Clara. And so we want to make sure that we are setting them on a good path. So if you know anyone, tell them about it, and we want them to open up an account.
I wanted to know how many branch Excited Credit Union out there.
Yeah, so we did close 2 branches within the last year. Our Sunnyvale branch is closed at the moment, and then our Robertsville branch is closed because we're no longer in that building. But we do have the Blossom Hill branch, which is right across from Oak Ridge Mall. And then we have our Kirtner branch, which is right across the street from the plant and the graveyard. So it's right there on the corner, like you can't miss it. And so those are our 2 branches in San Jose. And then of course you can open accounts online. And then we're actually located in North Carolina as well. So we have branches in San Jose and North Carolina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have some question for list. Is the first one is, are there special I think we probably covered this one, but I'll just ask one more time. Are there special accounts for students that help with planning or saving?
Yeah, so that one was one. That one's for youth. But we also have another account called the Jumpstart account that is also a partner account. And that one is for young people who are just getting started. We actually created that account because we also work with foster youth. That's another one of our focus areas. And so one of their challenges was getting bank accounts because they don't have parents that want to sign for them, or social workers or other supporters that want to sign to get them a bank account. And so this particular account does not require an adult. And you can be 13 plus years old to open this account. So, but with that, we do require them to have to talk to us, to talk to me, really, because we want to make sure that they know how to take care of the account, especially if they're so young. And so we do provide financial literacy for them ahead of time before they open the account. But that one will also provide 5% interest on the checking and the savings. And then we also provide the membership fee, which is, if you go to a credit union, you have to pay like a membership fee, right? And so the membership fee is usually anywhere from $5 to $10, and it's the savings account. That's the thing. Credit unions, to be a member, you have to have a savings account. And so we actually provide their membership fee. So they don't have to pay to open up for their membership. They just need the $25 to put in their checking account.
And does this Jumpstart account has an age limit?
It actually doesn't. It doesn't. I've opened them up for 16 years old, them up for 28 years old. It's a getting started account. So if you, if you're kind of a little bit more scared of the banking system and all that, fees and stuff, we limit those fees on this particular account. Like you can't overdraft this account. So there are some protections for the account. And also the withdrawal limits for the ATM are a little lower. And that's because, again, we don't want you to just like go out and to take out all your money, and like that's not the point. So we're trying to get these habits created so that they can make some good money decisions.
Our next question is, so how much should we actually have in an emergency fund? You know,
Well,
how much should be in our savings or in our emergency fund?
yeah, they say 3 to 6 months of your expenses. So whatever that looks like for you, if you live off of $2,000 a month, then you would want like $12,000 in an emergency fund, right? But again, we know how realistic that is, and it's not realistic for a lot of people. So we say save as much as you can, and only use it for emergencies. That's the thing, and that's why I recommend having 2 savings accounts. We don't want you to mix up your money, but like, oh, I want something, and you're dipping in your savings, but you're also dipping into your emergency fund. So if you can keep them separate, so you know what's what, that's my advice.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to know, for students who live at home and their parents or maybe their spouse takes care of their expenses, do you recommend them having an emergency fund as well if they don't provide for themselves?
Absolutely. Always, always, always. It doesn't matter what situation you're in, because you may not need it now, but you may need it later. And that's the thing about emergencies. What if your partner loses their job, or what if your parents, something happens and now you have to start paying bills, right? You want to be prepared for that. And you're actually at an advantage because you are able to store your money away. And so you should be able to build a very healthy emergency fund, whatever your situation is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. So when it's time to use the emergency fund, so how do you budget it and discipline yourself not to like overspend it?
Yeah, so with that, it just takes some self-awareness, right? If you know your car, it just broke down, it's going to take $350 to fix, then you only want to take out $350, right? You don't want to take out any more than you actually are going to need. And so that just kind of goes with being strong enough to say, like, this is only for emergencies. Like, this is what it's for. So this is what I'm going to use it for.
I have a follow-up to that question. So I'm thinking, like, for example, say if I had the 6 months saved up, and obviously if I don't have a job, I have to start living off of that money. And as a student, or just as a person in general, you see this huge pile of money. What do you suggest? Like, transfer it to a savings account and then budget it that way and start spending? Or I don't know. I know some people aren't as disciplined.
Yeah. So you would still need to make a budget. So whatever your monthly expenses are, you want to know what those are. And then you can transfer your money from your savings to your checking. And the thing about savings is you can't just, transfer and transfer and transfer, because they do have limits. So I would recommend doing it in a lump sum and paying off your bills. And the thing about bills is you can pay them as soon as you get them, right? So, don't just wait it out, but pay them as soon as you get them, so you don't have to worry about it, and make that one transfer.
Awesome. Okay. And then I think the last question that we have is, so should I save for paying off student loans or save for retirement or some other big expense in the future? And then, like, how do I prioritize that? Because I know that a lot of students have student loans. And, but what are we actually saving for?
Yeah. So especially with student loans, that gets kind of sticky. Like, that's a debt, right? So you're going to have to pay off that debt regardless. And depending on what kind of student loan you have, whether it's unsubsidized or subsidized, if you're accruing interest right away, then you want to start paying on it right away. Because if you don't, it's just going to accumulate later on, and you're going to have more to pay off. So if you're in that situation, pay it off, prioritize that. Because when it comes to retirement, hopefully once you graduate, you have that job that is going to provide you with a 401k. And hopefully they'll be giving you matching and all that kind of stuff. And that will help you also prepare for retirement. But those loans are going to have to be paid off regardless.
Okay, thank you so much. And so we have Stephanie just asked how she could get more information about the credit union. Do you guys have a link that you could post in the chat for the credit union?
Yes, I can. I will on a link. And we're not the only credit union. We have one that's closer to you. And that's the thing. We're not in competition with each other. We just want you to join a credit union in general because it's just better for you. There's Mirror West, there's SEFQ, there's Star One. And so there's a lot of different credit unions around the Bay Area. And I would recommend looking into all of them depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah, so actually, like a testimonial kind of. So I had some issues with my credit report, which prevented me from opening up a bank account through Chase and through Bank of America and all that stuff. And a little bit of time's been passed, but I went to my local credit union here in San Mateo where I live. And I was afraid they weren't going to open up the account. And there was like no questions asked. They were like, you know, let's just start up a savings account for you. And here's a checking account. So I was able to get a checking account and a savings account through my local credit union. So I highly recommend credit unions over the regular banks, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, there is a system, we didn't talk about it, but it can affect you from getting a checking or a savings account, and it's check system. So if you're in check systems for a variety of different reasons, then banks are hesitant to allow you to get those accounts because they're like, oh, you're going to do something bad, right? And so I know that we also have something similar to that. It's called a fresh start, right? And a lot of other banks, they're just like, we're just not going to give it to you. We're not going to give you anything. And it's for people who are trying to get back into the banking system. And we know how hard it is, and we're for the people. That's what I love about credit unions. So just another blurb.
Thank you very much, Alita. And unless anybody else has any questions, we can get down to the last of it. We want to say thank you to Alita for being here and being our host today. Thank you very much.